Alrighty. Let's get into part two of the line art project. So what I want to do for this one is I'm going to end up for this painting, do a medieval ship with a medieval sailor and some type of port that the characters are hanging out at. So got my Photoshop open, want to go ahead and set up my canvas. We're all new here, so let's get this thing set up. Right now it's 4x8. I don't want that. I want to do, let's go with 20 is always a good starting for the width. And let's go 20 by 35. My resolution is set to 150 here, so I'm going to have plenty of resolution going on, and I'm going to go ahead and create. So that is a pretty tall poster like picture that I've got here. It'll give me a lot of height to be able to build up the rest of the city. Moving off of here, I don't know. I think maybe a little bit less, and then maybe a little bit wider so I can get more of the ship in there. Yeah, we're right back to a square composition, but that's okay. So let me go ahead and drop in my gray for my background color so I don't burn my eyeballs out. And now I'm going to open up my composition with the composition or the crop tool over here, just to be able to start dropping in some of those reference images over on the side. Working a little bit faster through this stuff since my setup process is covered in other videos. Just gonna drop that background in there and let's start placing some images. All right. I have no idea where my pirate's at. Okay. Photoshop, you be that way. Sorry. Download in GFactory. I know this isn't the exciting stuff. Give me just 1 second. And need the ship. That'll work. Cool. All right, ready to begin. So when it comes to sketching and getting my composition set up, let's go ahead and be good to future will and save this out. So what I like to do when I am sketching within Photoshop is I'm going to change my brush color, maybe blue, and I'm going to drop my opacity down to like 40%. That'll work. And then I'm going to set my brush just to the regular hard round brush. And I can also right click on my color just to be able to remind myself where my first layer is at. And now I'm in a good spot to begin working here. So the reason why I like to do my setup like this is, first off, the blue line feels more sketchy to me. And then the next thing is, with it set down to 43%, this allows me not to have to fully commit to the idea or the thing that I'm creating. So it gives me a second to be able to draw back over my lines and start working towards the final idea here in just a little bit. So we want a ship with the pirate fella on there, and he is going to be, maybe inspecting his ship or getting upset that, you know, there's more or less cargo than he thought was going to be on this thing. we'll have him getting into an argument with somebody. I think that's kind of a fun way to do this. So at first, let's go in and let's start from the very back of this thing and figure out where our horizon line is going to be. That's a good safe spot for it to arrive. I'm going to hold down the shift button and just draw across here. Again, this is just my sketch. It's working good enough for me. Go in, let's create another layer on top of that. And in the background, we've got our nice little rocky plateau. So I'm going to keep my line work really, really small here, really thin as I'm starting to build in some of those rocky structures. If he's on the docks, that works fairly well. And we're going to have him sort of in the middle, sort of losing his stuff as he's trying to get more supplies or something set up for a voyage that he's about to take. Yeah. So let's go through and start thinking this across. We want a medieval castle that's hanging out there, and let's get in on it. So first thing I'm going to do is we've got a foreground that we need to create for this fellow. Maybe he's going to be planted right here. And then we've got our castle form that we want to create way off in the distance and within the background. So let's get that castle working really nice here. Looking at the reference a lot while I'm sketching. That works pretty well for me. We can create a curved wall that sort of steps down over here, so we'll get the idea that this is a nice big old shape. Some rocks over in the front of it, maybe some rocks on the ground. Just feeling my way through it. So that's a little bit of enough to be able to start developing this castle. I'll likely have to go back to this in just a minute or two, but don't be scared of doing the castles. And please understand that if you do not have references when you are trying to draw a castle, that it will end up looking not as good as you think it's going to if you're just pulling this out of your head. You really need to get references for those items. So for here, let's go ahead and get the boat into our scene. So the boat, I want that to be a pretty imposing, well, not so imposing. Let's do it on a new layer so we can size and scale it. But I've got my castle, and the natural lines that I'm creating with that castle are going down here. So this is where the focal point of the boat is going to be at. So let's see if we can't start drawing back. Hard shape coming down from the boat. And I'm trying to draw in 3D the best that I can here. So I'm thinking in terms of 3D forms and structures. You can see how loose and quick I'm moving through this initial sketch. And then if we think about the overall form of the boat, just sort of doing an X-ray view on it, that'll work. So we got one layer here within that illustration, and then we've got a top layer that goes back over here, a little bit further back, and some rails that are going to go around. There's our railing. That's going to be the top of the boat. Now from there, we've got this side that's got a little bit of a kink to it, and the back of the boat. And we want the boat to be coming forward in the water, right up to the edge. We don't necessarily need to see the edge. So now we've got our boat figured out and designed in here. Pull these all the way up. The sails are not going to be up on the boat because we don't want it to be crashing into the dock or whatever it is that it is up against. But we can assume that there's going to be some kind of cross galleon going on, and I don't want the line cross galleon. What am I doing? I don't want the line to directly cross here, so I'm going to need to move the horizon line. And that is why we do sketches, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So that's a much better spot for that. Got my layer of the boat. And let's keep that line going on the same sort of angle. So this can get a little bit further back in space. And let's wrinkle all of our cloth here. Like it's got another sail going up the back of it. This one we should be able to see. We'll tip that. Just wrinkle that cloth again. Somehow that's kind of interfering with my cool rock forms that I had back there, but that's okay. And let's go in and let's give them lines. So we're thinking through these lines and how those are going to interact in front of the ship. Okay. And that's all starting to work pretty well. So just that quick, I've got a pretty decent ship shape that is going on within this this painting. And it is somewhat historical accurate. So now we've got our castle, we've got our boat in place within each one of these elements that I just created, right? With the boat, we've got the lines moving down here. With the ship, we've got those same lines that are starting to move the viewer's eye through the painting. I really like this line over here that's starting to push us towards this section. This whole little line here is starting to direct us towards this area of the rendering, right? So all of our stuff has got kind of a natural push with the underlying lines that I'm creating within this painting. Let's go in, and now I'm in a pretty good spot. There's still ground and other elements that I need to develop out onto this painting as I continue to move forward, but I think we're in a good enough spot now to figure out where we would actually place the character within this piece, and that's what I want to go in and start rendering for you guys tonight. I'll worry about the background later on. There's probably still some more things that I can clean up as I'm continuing to develop this sketch, but we've got some good line work that's going on through here. I've got some neat details that are happening within this section of the ship. I kind of like that whole little step. This crossbar, that's kind of fun, but I think because this becomes such a focal point within the piece, right, that that's where I'm going to put the pirate's head. I think it's kind of a smart spot, and then I'll also give him those triangles with the lines that we're building in around the piece, and then his head is right in there with the whatchamacallit, with the horizon line too. So yeah, that'll separate him out nicely. And now I'm looking at my sketch over on the right hand side, and I'm going to start drawing. So the first thing that I always like to begin with is a really, really rough sketch, right? And the most important part here is probably this line that I'm bisecting that first circle with. So that is my eye line. Either of my eyes are going to be on either side of that particular line, and it's really determining which direction the character is looking at. The next one is where the brow line is going to be. So I want his head to be a little bit more down and to push the entire character back. From here, we know that he's going to have a big old medieval beard on him that's got some cool shapes happening as well. We can go in and start building up the structure of the character here in just a little bit, but for the most part, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I'm going to let their sketch really sort of inform this guy's beard. All right, so that works pretty well for me. I like it. And next up, we need to make this pirate expressive. So he is angry that his all the materials that he needs for his boat are not there. That's the story that I'm coming up with. So he is kind of pitching a temper tantrum and upset at something. So how do we show a character is upset? Well, you've got the facial expressions on him, but the body can be just as important to be able to tell the story of this character. So when it comes to good poses on a character, we've got this really kind of blocky, box-shaped body on him. What I want to do is we don't always have to make the neck like fully extended, like they're sitting up perfectly right within a chair. Sometimes it's really fun to be able to drop the character's head down, right? So if he's upset, he's really hunching over and getting into the anger that he's feeling right now. Next thing that we can do to be able to bring it back to being medieval. During medieval, they're always reading from scrolls, right? So we want to have this guy holding some type of scroll in his hand and being really pretty upset that whatever was supposed to be on that scroll isn't working out. So let's figure out the hand position next. I'm just establishing my shoulders with two little lines going off the side of this character, but for the hands, okay, so if he's upset and he's just realized that like something isn't right, maybe he was holding the scroll in his hand, and then as he sort of moves forward, then the his other hand is going to come forward like this. I like it. All right, so there we go. So let's give a finger back over on this side. not the finger, a finger. And hand out. All right, so that'll work good. So this starts to inform something, right? With the character's pose, and this gets into animation. I'm thinking about, which one of these shoulders is back. So this one's going to be larger. This one's going to be further away. So now his body is mimicking the same shape or pattern that the boat is, right? So it's moving further in space and then coming forward. And this is a great way to add dynamism to your poses. So often when I see these starting illustrators coming into this course, they tend to make their characters really, really flat up against the screen. But there's a rule within theater that you never want your body turned completely flat to the audience because it creates a really boring, uninteresting composition on the stage. So let's see here. Our fellow's got some long arms. He's got some big old thick arms there. And from here, I can go ahead and place my other hand somewhere else. So let's say that he's wrinkling up the scroll that he had with the hands. Usually can start with a circle and then start to build the forms in underneath. You notice that I'm always thinking in terms of boxes on the character's hands. So he's going to have this hand turned up, this one back, and let's just go ahead and wrinkle whatever scroll thing it was that he was looking at. His hands, he's not having it. He's not a happy medieval pirate camper. Okay, so now we're starting to get a pretty good pose that's already coming up. I've got that hand. These two are pretty even to one another. I could probably drop this hand down a little bit further, but that's okay. We're going to keep pushing forward with it for right now. So don't forget about these awesome furry edges on his outfit. There's my shoulders. And from here, we've got the chest area on this guy. So for the chest, go in and I can sort of imagine back like this. His beard is covering up a lot of his central body. This is getting a little bit messy for you guys to see. Drop down the opacity on my background layer. This is one of the reasons why I like to draw on multiple layers, even when I'm doing my sketch. Gotta love Photoshop for that. And yeah, so there it is. He's pointing his hand forward. He's coming in. He's got one shoulder. The shoulders, one of them could be up, one of them could be down, but that's all right. So let's go ahead. His body, his torso is now facing back in that way in space. So let's imagine with those great pants that he has on. All right, I'm going to give him a diaper here just to be able to get an idea of the overall shape forms within him. And let's have him take one step forward within space. So now we've got a kneecap. See, all this, I'm just drawing the underlying structure at first and keeping it really, really loose. There's his other kneecap back here. And this guy's got some pretty thick lower legs and feet. Looking at the model, really like the shape of the boot there. Again, I'm constantly thinking in 3D with these forms that I'm drawing. So we've got that knee there, and then we've got the back leg. So the back leg, go ahead and drop it down and placing it on the ground. So that is a pretty good character form right there. But within Photoshop, there's still things that we can make better. So his weight isn't really evenly distributed, right? So under the bottom of the character here, it feels like he's not balanced with the way that he's standing. So, and this is something that you always want to just sort of check for. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to distort that and push the feet back under the character just a little bit more. Leave those legs where they're at. And that one back. All right. So now that foot is a little bit further back. We're still connecting it to the character. And let's get them going on. All right, so that little change there, I want to show you what the before and after look like on the leg shapes within the character. If I hit Control Z, we'll be able to see it previously. There it was before, and here is the Uh-oh. No, that's okay. Looks like Photoshop's going to have us do it twice. Edit, transform, distort. There we go. All right, so now the feet feel more underneath the character, which is a really good thing. Let's see if there's anything else within this initial sketch. I don't quite have his arms connected on there. I've just got the hand positions that are working. But let's see if there's anything else that we can change. So what I'm going to do, I'm using the lasso tool again, hitting Control T on the keyboard. And now I just want to push that pose to where one shoulder is up and then one shoulder is down, even though it's moving back into space. And suddenly you can see that the pose is starting to come together a lot more. So there he was before. Oh my goodness. I don't know why my redo isn't sticking around here. I'm sorry that I'm having to do this stuff twice tonight, you guys. But yeah, so this is just a good tip. Once you finish up your sketch, you are not entirely stuck with the shapes or the pose, even at this scale that you create. All right, so Pirate is starting to feel pretty good at the sketchy level, but the positioning of him is a little rough. He's getting way too far over to the side, and now we're losing those elements within the background on the character. That's okay. I think it's more important that we get him on this section that feels a little bit more balanced. Yeah, I'm losing those details behind the ship, but now I've got a good starting point for my pirate character, and this gives it a little bit more breathing room for what's going on with the rest of the drawing. So let's go in and let's finish off those arms real quick. At this point, it is a cinch. It's a piece of cake. So I'm using, again, these circular rounded shapes and forms to be able to figure out the character's position. From here, this back arm isn't really going to show up too much. There's the hand. That's why we like to have it on multiple layers. And the arm. Cool. So that all is looking pretty good to me with this character. I don't know what that thing hanging down on my reference image between his legs is, but I'll include that in my drawing. Okay, so that's feeling pretty good. You'll notice that I don't really have a face on the character yet. This is something that I highly encourage you guys to go in and think about when you are developing these drawings is, does the fail early and fast early on these characters so that you can build into the details later on and figure out if something is or is not working within your drawing. Just like I'm even at this very, very sketchy stage, I'm looking ahead in my mind's eye and thinking about what this character is going to look like. So there is my nose position. Remember, we've got our crosshairs that I drew earlier. And I want my nose on this guy to come off and be rather long. So that is a pretty cool little in shape that they got on him. It's pretty sharp. And then we've got a really, really long line that goes around the character's nose. I think that's a nice little touch that they've got within this. And then we've got some good lines that are going on the edge of him and a pretty good brow or scowl that's going on. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we've got our lines going off on either side, and we've got the eyebrows, those great eyebrows that are going on with this character. Again, I am not trying to reinvent the wheel or come up with this completely out of my mind. I'm using my reference image over on the side as a great study to help inform this thing. His eyebrows are really close together too, which is nice. Okay, and then we've got the eyeballs. So the eyes are getting really well and attached. Keeping it really loose here. And I'm thinking about the underlying form. So I've got my beard that's already been placed. One thing that I like about this 3D reference that I'm using is that they've really got some good form that's going on around the character's lips. This is something that I always love looking at whenever I'm seeing, you know, graffiti or street art or anything like that. They always seem to do a great job adding some shape and form to the character's lips instead of just having it be, one sliver of an opening. Giving it a little bit more shape really helps an awful lot. Okay, so we got the beard line that's going down here. That feels good to me. This is a mean looking medieval pirate fella here. All right, and those lines are just going up on the character's face just a little bit here, here, goes on back. Within the reference image that I had a second ago, he does have a fun hat on, which is a nice touch. So yeah, let's go with full-on medieval hat. You don't really think of medieval people as wearing hats like this, but I'm here for it. He's a sailor. He practices good skincare. He's worried about his skin in the sun all day. Yeah. All right. So with the hat, my main deal is that I'm thinking about the brim and the shape and the forms that are being created here. You notice how I'm sort of building everything structurally as much as I can around the same time. So it's got this weird sort of to it. I want to make sure that this is a solid shape that adds to my piece. I think that's kind of cool, where we're giving it a little bit of a Popeye Donald Duck type of feel. And let's open it up so that the brim here on top starts to come around. That looks pretty good to me. All right, so we've got a good sailor's face that's starting to show up here. He's got some lines going on underneath his eyeballs. There he is. He's looking over to the side. Get that eyebrow really, really low on him. Got the nose shape. And this is where that 40% comes in. So now I'm just reworking my sketch just to be able to make sure that I'm good and okay with where it is that I'm finalizing my lines at on this character. Let's go over the beard one more time. Be able to build those shapes and forms in. And I'm losing a lot of the cool details that are going on within his neck. So let's see if we can still sort of over exaggerate that medieval collar. We're not really going to see that within that drawing, but can't save everything. So I like he's got the button that sort of opens up here. I think that that's a really nice touch. The way that it opens up into the character's gut. You definitely want to include that. That's a funny little piece. Got the chest on the character. Let's give him a broad chest because he is a sailor. He's a tough guy. And that's starting to open up over here. This one will start to open up on this side. And then we've got those great pants. Let's give him just a little bit of a gut. And go. So we got these really nice fleur-de-lis forms that are going on. Just again, I'm trying to do all this stuff really quickly so that I can save myself a little bit of time later on with this character. So let's don't forget to think through the shoes at this stage. That'll work for me. And now we've got other sections that I'm not solving for yet. Let's go in and pull that. That's looking pretty good. There you go. He feels good and sailorly now. And so just that quick, we've got a really, really good sketch that's starting to go on with our pirate character. It's working. It's a strong pose. We've got the details of the face figured out. You can see him pointing off screen. He's upset about something, isn't quite going right. There's probably a couple other options or iterations that I could do on this pose, but for tonight's example, to keep things moving forward, I think that this is a pretty good starter. I've also got the ability here, now that I've set up my composition, to figure out if I want to put another character that is absolutely scrambling based on this guy's remarks. So he's upset. Something didn't go right with his ship behind him. I think it could work better if he was like pointing back at his ship and like looking over and yelling. But we'll get the idea here. So let's go in and what if he's reacting to somebody? We want that finger still to be able to show up on the character. and we want someone kind of scrambling pretty fast. So, do, 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 do. I don't think they gave salutes during the medieval ages, but maybe he's got somebody on the run or someone turning around and running off after whatever this guy has just chastised this poor fellow about that's got a piece of this sailor captain's mind. Um, so again, let's just start with the circle and we're going to start exploring here. Um, so maybe, I don't know, let's make it like a noble person or something like that in this same character style. I like it. And now we can really show off that great medieval collar on this guy. There was another medieval outfit that I had just a moment ago. Let's keep the downward turn nose going on, just so that they feel like they're part of the same universe, not overthinking it. There's my circle again, and I'm working my way up and through this character. And let's stick with the bushier eyebrow shapes. Just so that the characters do feel connected with one another. And yeah, maybe it's like a noble person who is not perturbed by his anger. So we have some good contrast going on within the character's poses, but let's make his mouth really, really high up, feeling like yeah, just the greatest cheekbones you've ever seen in your entire life. And I would definitely need to look up more medieval medieval hats for this character. I can't think of a good medieval hairdo at the moment. So back to the reference images. Oh, they had beanies. Okay. Yeah, pirates just kind of doing its pirate thing. Oh boy. Well, medieval haircuts for guys. That's has brought up something really interesting. There we go. So that's the type of hat that we want. And look, it's got a little scarf going on with it. Yeah, I think that's exactly where we want to be. That's our merging merchant class all the way. And that is perfectly goofy. Let's do that. So really playing with the what you call it, the scale and the proportions here. Extend this guy's neck up as much as we can. He's not really having any of it. And who doesn't like a nice feather as well because it's medieval? So there we go. And now you can see him sort of side-eyeing the other character, not really having any of his weirdness. Open up that mouth so that we can see it just a little bit better. Maybe we can give it just a little bit of a sneer. There we go, with some teeth slightly opened. And what to do with his hands, since we've got so little of this character to be able to work with within our composition. Maybe, he's surprised by what the other character's saying, so he could be touching his heart. That's okay. Let's just have him sort of walking off, I guess. Sorry, I got to go back to my reference images. I can feel myself sometimes. There we go. Starting to make this stuff out of my own head, and that's where you know you got a problem that you're starting with. Oh, cool. So for the rest of the character's arm, I'm just going to again draw a straight line going down, a little dot for where the elbow is going to be, and let's maybe open the hand up just a little bit so we can get some of that hand shape going on with it. And we'll make it like he just, dropped his hand down and said, no, no way, and sort of swiped his hand across his body. I think that's a good look for this interaction between these two particular characters. You can see me again starting really, really rough on the hands and just sort of working my way into these shapes that I'm going to have. As I start to finalize them, very, very loose at first, skinny versus thicker character. Just for some contrast between the two. And there we go. Got his arm in there. Let's get the musculature going on with the arm so that it makes a little bit more sense for my drawing. There's where his chest would be, and let's go in, and he is going to be leading with his waist. All right, give him a nice little medieval belt, sash. Get that little cut going up the side that they all seem to have. There we go. That looks good. Some good form, and that hand is back, so this foot is going to be forward, and he is walking away. All right, so he's had enough of it. So now we've got a really dynamic interaction between two different characters within this drawing and within this illustration. Maybe there's a little bit more that I can do with the character's arm here, just to be able to make it add to the composition more. So let's go in, and I'm going to go this time under the transform to warp, and I'm going to try and push and pull. There we go. T, Alt T again. Let's push it back even more. Let's make that arm larger too. There we go. All right, so now it's starting to swipe through the painting in a more reasonable way. This character is still kicked really far over to the side. I think that is going to work a little bit better for us, just to be able to give us a little bit more breathing room on the edge of the character. And now he's starting to create some nice overlap. I like that. So my previous drawing, now the character's hand or fingers need to get moved. Sorry. And in this early blocking stage, I'm really doing a lot to be able to think through where my character is at. I'm still on the wrong layer. All right, there it is. Still a little bit of a weird negative space there. Let's try dropping it down more. Yeah. Maybe it's just the finger is a little bit too long. Just thinking that could be improved. Come on now. Yeah. Again, trying to draw in 3D shapes as much as I can. Thinking about the form, his finger is sort of the shape of a Twinkie in my head. Let's go ahead and hit Control Save. And there's probably still a little bit more work I can do. It works fine, all right, with the exception of this scarf. So it's this scarf That's really giving me a lot of worry. So we're going to push that in a little bit off closer on this guy. Turn it a little bit. There we go. It's still, the negative space was a little bit better when it was further over, but I think that's going to do us. It's going to work pretty well. All right, get my purple back up just so we know which composition I'm working on. So I'm working back through this character and just sort of completing this side of him. Center for the chest line. And I think there was just a zipper that was kind of going down there. I got his rib cage if we wanted to do that. The torso, let's just continue this on. And there we go. So now we've got a pretty dynamic painting that we can start working through. So I've got my city structure within the background that's building well. I've got my ship that's really starting to disappear. We're seeing a lot less of that ship than we were at the beginning of this illustration. All right, so maybe at this point, I can move this guy over just a little bit more. Oops. And we're getting right over to that little plus sign that's coming in there on the ship. So I want to cover that up just a little bit. Yeah, I think he is in sort of the best spot that he could be. All right. So from there, I think I would if I was as I'm doing this on my own and starting to complete this drawing, what I would end up doing next is completing the background, figuring out more stuff for the castle in the back within the ship, and really start detailing in the ground and the other elements around the character within the sketch phase, and really try and fail fast here before I get into the final rendering on this character. If I wait too long to start solving for these things later on, I'm not going to be thinking all the way through my composition and through my rendering. And I really want to solve for these things early on within the process. Otherwise, I won't think of it later on after I get tired doing all the fine line work on this character here in just a moment. But let's stop the video for now. And then in the next one, we'll come back in and I'll actually start doing some line work once this sketch now that the sketch is nice and developed.